critical thinkers, public speakers, and they debate.
We have doctors, we have nurses and midwives.
But you're the one who read the article and said that yes.
Introducing iDebate TV Championship, where the best schools in Rwanda battle against each other, resolving conflicts without resorting to violence, solving problems creatively using debate. This is iDebate TV Championship.
Hello there and welcome. We said we'd be back and we are back. You're watching the iDebate TV Championship. Two schools here debating, and of course with one thing in mind, and that is taking it home. Our motion for today is the problems of a nation are better solved by the private sector rather than the government. My name is David and I am your host. Now, of course, the two sides taking on the proposition side is Doctrina, and of course the opposition is Rusumo Highschool. Yes, and of course we have the judges, the tough guys on that desk that look to them and say, you did a great job, or you did rather awful. Judge Enoch is with us, Judge Lucille, and of course Judge Dorian. Judge Enoch, lovely shirt you have on there.
Thank you very much.
Indangamirga, indeed. So how do you feel today? It's going to be an exciting debate. How do you feel?
I feel very excited because this is going to be my first time judging a TV debate. So I'm excited for this experience, and I can't wait to see what the debaters are bringing because this is a very interesting motion.
Yes, and I can tell from the faces they are in their heart saying, go easy on us. Well, my job here is done. It's time that I hand it over to the judges as they commence this debate. May the best man or woman.
Thank you. Welcome everyone to the debate. The speakers today are going to have 4 minutes each, and then are going to have 2 final minutes for their cross-examination. And I would like to invite the first proposition speaker to come up.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I go by the name Cedric Eman, and with by my colleagues Guillermo Thierry and Teta. We are all from College Doctrina. As a motion of today states that the problems of the nations are better solved by the private sector than by government, 100%. I understand the motion, and that's why I'm here to support this motion. Let me first break down the important words of this motion. Private sector is a segment or part of the national economy that is owned, controlled, and managed by private individual or enterprise, whereas government is a group of people with the authority to govern a country. The problems that many nations face are unemployment, government accountability, and corruption, lack of education background, lack of economic opportunity and of employment, poverty, and 7% of these problems are solved by the private sector. I release this case to the second speaker. Let me first even remind you what a problem is. A problem is a matter or a situation regarded as unwelcome or harmful and needing to be dealt with and overcome. For today, let's set our boundary on Rwanda as a team. According to urban governance, the private sector is a key stakeholder in both urban and economic development, being a major contributor to the national economy, the principal job creator and employer. The private sector provides around 90% of the employment in developing the world. The private sector opts and operates in different means of the country, especially in the economic growth. In Rwanda, private sector creates job opportunity for people that the government could not provide as a social service so far. Private sector does. It is stated that the government was expecting to use and fund the national budget as follows. Domestic resource was 1.963 billion, equivalent to 61%. External grants were 493 billion, equivalent to 15%. External loans was 783 billion, equivalent to 24%. Net lending repayments was 7 billion, equivalent to 0%. Actually, the high percentage was found in the private sectors. This was got from the AY Global source of information. First, corruption. The meaning of corruption. This is a dishonest or illegal behavior, especially by powerful people such as government offices or police officers. As we know, corruption, it is one of the leading thing which is a problem to many nations. As we know, the Safari George was accused of fighting against the government offices. But on the media houses of the government, they said that they punished the government people. Why they took him to another sector to be judged, and they brought it behind because it was just for the part of the government. That's what corruption. Then, dear judges, please understand this. Seriously speaking, dear judges, I would like to inform my opponents that 97% of problems of nations of Rwanda are solved by private sectors. Proud to propose. Any question, please?
The first problem is, you guys just differentiate of us the problems of the nation from the problems within a nation. And also the next question, before you answer that, just tell us, why does the government influence in having shares in private sectors?
Sorry?
Question 1, differentiate the problems of the nation from the problems within a nation, and also give us why does the government influences in having shares in all private sectors?
The first question, I release this to the second speaker, but let me answer the second question. The government, it doesn't have the shares in what? In the private sector. That the private sectors, the government is the one which lose those, it governs what a country or state. That's not the shares. It's that the government is the one which leads the country or state.
Another question goes like this. How does the activity of private sectors influence the first division of ODE?
Okay, first see in the Rwanda Revenue Authority sources, all the revenues of the country, the external grants, they are the ones which lead. Then how do you think that the government could get that money of providing to those people while there are no those external grants? Thanks to the judges and the audience.
Thank you. First speaker proposition. I would like to call on to the first opposition speaker.
Hello everyone, I go by the names of Gwemera Hamisi. I'm really excited to be here and participate in this debate. Before I begin my speech of today, I'd like to thank a couple of people who made this event possible for us. Thanks to iDebate Rwanda in collaboration with the KC2 for hosting this tournament. It has really been amazing for us. Thanks to our school administration team, we are lucky to be in a school that recognizes that debate can change our lives. We want also to thank our teammates and coaching with Jean Damour from Rusumo Highschool for making us more competent to be here today. Without further ado, I begin the opening opposition speech. The government should solve the problems. The opposition should criticize the government and offer alternative solutions. Vladimir Putin. It's because you agree with Vladimir Putin that you are proud to oppose the motion which says that the problems of nations are solved by the private sector than the government. After framing the context and burdens of the debate, I will be giving you the facts proving how the government solves the problems of nation better than the private sector. My partner Gaye will be giving you further analysis as well as refutations, and Yassine will be dealing with all battles as well as constructive arguments. On framing this debate at its core is the debate about is the debate about comparing the achievements of government versus private sector in solving the problems of nation. I want to introduce key definitions. Problems of a nation. Problems of a nation means these are problems of a territory where all people led by the same government are affected. Private sector refers to the part of country's economy consisting of companies, businesses, and so on that are not owned by the government. Government refers to a group of people ruling a nation. We believe that team opposition is tasked with proving how and why the government solve the problems of nation better than the private sector. We believe that also team affirmative is tasked with showing us the problems of nation and how do they differ from the problems within a nation together with proving how the private sector solves the problems of a nation better than the government. Our stance is that a better solvence on the problems of nation is a solvence that left no one behind in the whole population. Our characterization acknowledges that Rwanda has 8 cross-cutting issues and other unfortunate natural disasters like pandemics and financial crises. Technology, gender, environment, imidugudu, HIV and AIDC, employment, capacity building, and inequality are considered as Rwanda's cross-cutting issues are achieved via a series of 7 national strategic for transformational NST1. Focusing on inequality by private sectors, the world has reached a disturbing new threshold. The richest 1% now owns nearly half of the wealth, meaning that the rest percentage holds the first, middle, and lower classes plus the government share the less 50% of wealth. Economic inequality is getting worse by today and is fueling populist backlashes. As the head of Oxfam Winnie Byanyima said at Davos, extreme inequality is really getting out of control. It's undermining our economies, fracturing our societies, fueling crime, fueling ill health. It's bad for everyone. When the richest get richer, they tend to save their income rather than consuming more goods and services, whereas people in the rural class tend to spend their money more quickly, providing the fuel that powers economy. It's because we team opposition strongly believe and advocate for better solvency that left no one behind. We are proud to oppose. Any question from proposition?
Thank you. I would like you to remind me your name, please.
What?
Your name.
Name. I go by the names of Hamisi Ali Rwemera.
So you said like 50% of the wealth is managed by the government, right? However, the private sector?
No. I didn't say so. The statistics I gave you was stating that the nearly 1% of the richest people now owns the nearly half of the world's wealth. Nearly 0.5% of the world's worth.
Okay, sorry, that was misunderstood.
That's your question?
Yes.
You said that Putin is saying that the problems of the nation are better solved by the government.
No. Putin said the government should solve problems. The opposition should criticize the government and offer alternative solutions. No any question? So I rest my case.
Thank you very much for that first speech from the first opposition speaker. I'd like to call on to the second proposition speaker to present their case.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Here I'm standing as the proposer side. My name is Rwija Matseri. I'm here to support this motion, which says that the problems of the nation are better solved by the private sector, but better than the government sector. For me, I agree with this motion because I'm not thinking, by the way, it is true. Here we are in iDebate. For you are sitting there, and those are people, they are there as getting the employment. I think this is your job. So here in Rwanda, I have the problem of unemployment. So the private sector is solving the problems here in Rwanda like this. Here where you are sitting, I think that this is your job. You are doing your job. This one is the private sector. So the private sector is paying people to do the job to the students. Here you are giving the advices to the children in order to help themselves in the future. Here there's another problem of inequality in Rwanda. We have the problem of inequality because the government, for example, like police police will not report the other neighbors of police. Here, for example, like KC, we are talking to the national police saying that there is the problem of the traffic problems. So this means that the private sector are there to solve problems which the government is not seeing. So it means that the private sector is dominant, higher than the government in solving the problems. There is the dropout of the children out of the schools. These private sectors are solving the problems of dropout of the children who are leaving the schools in day per day. Here, the employers are making their own property and such, for example, like Glory. Glory is making, by the way, is building the schools such that they can help those children who drop out the schools because the government schools are full of receiving the children. So Glory is summarizing or reducing the low level of students who will be studying in government schools. So here we have the problems of lack of education background. Here there is a lack of education background because at a high percentage at this time, the high level of the students who scored well, they were from the private schools. So this means that the day schools, the government schools are not fulfilling the work than the private sectors. Here we also get the problem of poverty. Here in Rwanda, we have the problem of poverty. But here in Rwanda, we have the private sectors which are taking these risks in a good way. They're providing food for the people who don't have food. For example, like there is a company which is helping the students to study and provide them with food. Like those companies, there in Bugesera district, is called I don't remember properly, but I will remember it. Those schools those companies are helping those children to get food and to get the shelter where to live. So it means that the private sector are doing high things to the society. So this means that the private sector are solving main problems in the nation. So here we have another problem of lack of economic opportunity and the employment, as I have said above. The employment is being given to the people by the private sector. Thank you. Is there any question?
In which metrics or under which stance are you saying that the government, the problems of the nation are better solved by the private sector over the government?
For example, here we are. Do you think this one is a government?
Metrics, not giving me an example. In which metrics or under which stance?
Explain well.
Under which metrics, under which measurement, in terms of quality effectiveness, in terms of quantity effectiveness, or in terms of analysis effectiveness?
For example, like here in unemployment, they are giving the jobs to the people.
Thank you. I'm here to remind you that we're not here to debate that private sectors do pay their law. We're here to debate that they do pay higher law than the government. So basically what we're debating on, you're focusing on the importance of private sectors, but you are not proving to us how do they define, how does it play an important role than the government?
Of course they are paying high law.
Yeah, show us the government side and show us how do they differ in way.
According to the people. Let me give you, for example, in schools.
Yeah.
According to the number of students who are scoring at high level, they are from private sectors.
How does the private sector solve inequality since their aim is maximizing profits?
They are solving, of course, the problems. For example, I have given you the, for example, from KC. KC solves the problems of traffic problems.
Thank you very much for that second proposition speech. I would like to now call upon the second opposition speaker to present their case.
Okay, thank you. Today I want to go deep in introductions. My name is Kajimana Gero from the opposition. Let me first tackle on the proposition side whereby they brought stuff like unemployment, they brought inequality, dropouts, and lack of education backgrounds. But basically until now I don't recall how do we need education background. Today, we don't need any education background, dear judges. All we need is people to focus and learn. So basically, these people are bringing us issues that we even don't need. They brought something like poverty, whereby there is a campaign that they forget. But mind you, today, the president or the government is already solving an issue of poverty through Rwanda. So that's a fact. Basically, as long as you don't remember your company, don't come focusing on anything else here. Coming back to the thing of dropouts, dear judges, the case is, when people fail in private schools, that's because they know that these people can't manage that year. So they have to repeat the year for them to just have the quality education needed. So basically when they drop out of that school and go in private schools, they just need to give money. The private sectors are getting money from them. It's not because they are providing quantitative or qualitative education. It's because those people only want money. And he also brought something like KC, dear judges. How do you bring KC? Because if someone announces the problem and saying that the police already failed the problem, it's because you don't know what's happening in the police. So as long as you don't know what's deep there in the political stuff, so don't focus saying that we failed. So basically, dear judges, I want to come on the governmental side. The governmental side says that, let's come on pandemic. Pandemic, the Rwanda put there some measures, including curfews, including the lockdowns, masks, sanitizers, and also paid volunteers. So basically, I want to ask these guys, who and where do these private sectors involved in reducing the pandemic? Plus, there is something called vaccination. Today, there are statistics found on COVID Vax Live. 11 million of people are vaccinated today. The total doses given are 87%. The people vaccinated, the first dose are 55%, and also the complete vaccines are 33%. But basically, I want to ask these guys, what if let's go in our TIF period. What if the private sectors were given these chances of providing the vaccines? If they want money, how many people could have been vaccinated? Because we have 87 today. And today, the test is being, they're asking for 30K. So basically, dear judges, if we are asking for profits, today there are poor people here in Rwanda. So I don't know how you're going to say that you're solving an issue on a global scale. We as the citizens of Rwanda, we are focusing on what? We are focusing on that affects all the citizens, so not a part of the citizens. Here, they're emphasizing for the development of only the people that are already rich. So basically, let's remind ourselves that we have people in the bush. People in the bush, what are they getting? People, because we are from Kirehe, by the way, we are from the border. We know how poverty feels. We know how their stuff feels like. So basically, because you're from Kigali, please, you're interrupting us. Just know that we, as the government, we are playing an important role in developing every sector, depending on nothing. Plus, let's put something in place, like Minister of Health has said. Minister of Health, mind you, is Dr. Ganji Daniel. Announced that the government reduced the cost of COVID-19 tests of this PCR, I mean. Today, a citizen is paying 30K, and the government is paying the rest of 17K. So basically, I want to ask these guys, how is the government, in private sectors, are they going to pay this 17K? They just want profits. They don't want to sacrifice themselves over you. Another thing is, there are many policies put in place just to reduce these issues we have in Rwanda. Thank you.
Thank you. You do say that government is the one in charge just to improve, like the vaccination. Okay. If they would have said like every person need to pay for the 100 to get vaccination. So do you know why? I mean, quick question, like the government, the property they have is Swiss citizens. Because they don't have any other things like mining, petrols, you know. So if they didn't invest in us so that we can work and give taxes, I don't get how.
What's your question?
What the question, like you said, government is better than private sector. So okay. If us we wasn't there, how could the government solve their problems?
Okay, I want to remind these people that you're winning on a simple thing. We're winning on the aims. The aims of the government is simple. The aim for the welfare of citizens. But the aims of the private sectors is only maximizing profit.
Okay.
So basically when we come to aim, that means that these guys are not considering the poor people. We as the poor people just need to be focused on.
Okay, and do you know why, I mean, quick question. Why do people who work in the government, if they get money, they go to work for themselves in private sector? It because...
Okay. I want to remind you that Rwanda, we are not here saying that private sectors don't have any importance, dear judges. We are here to compare their activities. So even today, Rwanda itself emphasizes kwihangira umurimo program, right? So if we emphasize that, we know the importance of that. Basically, we know the importance. So we're just seeing, are the private sectors playing an important role in solving the issues of the country than the government? So basically, we're not saying that it's disadvantageous for them to work in the country.
So where does they get the money? You said that they pay 30% and the rest is paid by the government. And where does they get the money if it's not in the private sector?
Okay.
Just in case we don't
Thank
have
you, dear judges. This guy is asking me where we get the 17%, but I want to ask you, is the country broke?
No, but...
So as long as we have money, dear judges, we have money, so we don't have to waste our time doing that. It's not broke
just because the...
Thank you, I rest my case. I'm proud to oppose.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the second opposition speaker. I'd like to now call upon the final and third proposition speaker to present their case.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here by the names of Teta Janet Hussein. As the affirmative of the motion saying that the problems of the nation are solved by the private sector, by the government. Starting from the last colleague from here, you said that the government pays the rest of 70%, but I reconsider that the government has the will as we citizens, because if they didn't care that much on investing the vaccination in us, there wasn't any other way they could go with, because we are the ones who worked, and as the private sector, we pay higher taxes so that the government can reuse it in the solving problems. So as to convince you that the problems of the nation are better solved by the private sector than government, as my colleagues noted above, the last end keywords suggestion is stated that since private sectors are solving high percentage of the nation, it means that the government should release, it's doing nothing, and the government should let the private sector do the activities that it has in the chart, because private sector do 70% of the government work. And major problems of the nation is poverty, lack of education background, inequality, and employment and lack of economic opportunity, and government accountability and corruption. And as you said that the no need of background education, if you think that no need of background education, I don't get why the government could, if you go get a job from the government, I don't know why they would need the certification of everything you have learned. And so, however, to support as I'm affirmative, to support my point is that if we citizens, we wasn't there to pay for the taxes, high taxes, and then I don't get like the government could really manage all these things. Like, so if I give the examples like on COVID-19, we needed a much help just because we private sectors weren't working and we're in curfew and lockdown. They needed more help and much help from the abroad, those countries. So it means if the government was able to solve those problems within private sectors, they wouldn't need any problem from abroad countries. And however we go in corruption, yes, corruption do exist. Because like you find like in 2016, where I was studying in New Explorers Girls Academy, one of the student person got the good marks and good grades, but the corruption was that she has to be replaced by the daughter of one of the leaders. So by that, I said that the corruption matters because the government invests in where there is money more than the people who have knowledge. Any question, please?
Thank you. The first question is simple. As you're saying that private sectors do pay taxes, that the government needs, it also facilitates other activities in the government. Do you know that the government only needs your support, not also, you're not the one solving the issue, because here we even to see the issue solver. We are the ones solving the issue, but basically we need your support. You guys need to give us some aid. But you're not the one solving anything.
Yeah, you need our support because you're the one paying the high rate taxes than you guys. And then just because the private sector doesn't be considered that much, you say that the work is being done by the government. However, we private sector, as I said, if they didn't need any help from private sector during the curfew and COVID-19, they wouldn't need any help from the abroad countries if private sector didn't really matter.
The next question is simple. what could happen if all the governmental problems were solved by the private sectors?
What could happen is that they would manage and learn about them just because.
I want to remind you then, all they need is just a profit. The profit is very simple. So basically, if all companies are focused on profits, they're not depending on any welfare of citizens. So basically, that means that failing the government.
So, quick question. If the private sector weren't needed by the government, if our help doesn't really matter, why do they still need it? And if the government really mattered, it wouldn't have been COVID-19.
Okay, you're out of my line. Basically, I didn't say we don't need your help.
Yeah.
But basically, you're not good solvers than we do. That's simple.
So here's the thing. If you were the good solvers, the government should have let the old problems the private sector do helps in be laid to the government as other countries do, right?
Please, could you give us the credibility and the reliability of your information and the statistics that you provided? And the next question goes, your first speaker talked about corruption, that the private sector solves corruption. And I would like to ask you, who sets the rules and the laws that punishes those people who corrupt?
Okay, for the second question, I said who set the rules, a government?
Your first speaker said.
Said so?
Said that the private sector fights against the corruption.
Yeah, we do, because like...
How?
How? Like, if it wasn't about the corruption, like, a person couldn't be working in government and then later be entrepreneur just because during the government giving the jobs to people, it doesn't really depend on the knowledge, just corruption. So the private sector needs to give those unemployed people work so that they can reduce that corruption, which is there outside, to give even people who are unemployed just because the government really don't matter about the question.
And how are you solving the problem? You as the private sector, how are you solving that problem better than the government that sets rules and rules against it?
Like the private sector, we help in rebuilding of the schools. Like most of the schools that are built by the government, you find there is a low education just because the government can't manage to build the schools.
Provide numbers, specific numbers or statistics with their credibility.
Like 20%.
Like?
Starting from those schools there near Nyamirambo,
could you give the credibility and the reliability of your past information and the statistics you provided within your speeches, the first and second and your third speech? Credibility and the reliability of your information, source of information.
Source of information, we just... Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the final proposition speech, and I'd like to call on to the third speaker from the opposition.
Okay, thank you, ladies and gentlemen in the House. I'm by the names of Mlindi Keze, in the side opposition. As my role on the team today, I'll be here assessing the motion, giving the disadvantage of the affirmative, engaging on the battles as well as giving the constructive arguments. Starting with the offense part before defense, the side speaker of the team affirmative came here giving us that private sector pays higher tax. Mind you, dear judges, we all know here that mathematically, if you are using a formula to solve a problem, that doesn't mean that the formula solves the problem. You solve the problem using a formula. So, private sectors paying high taxes, it is our law or it is our formula of solving the problem we have. And also, dear judges, these guys came here saying that the students who score well and are in private. And let us put an analytical thinking. Are we just going to let people that score well, or we want all people to score? For sustainable development, we want all people that score. That's what the government does as a parents. And also the second speaker came here, the third speaker also came here giving us a statistic like 20%. Should we waste our debate on debating things like, he's not sure, it's like approximately? Are we just going to debate on things that they are not sure? Also, these guys, they believe that the government is the one who's setting policies that fight anti-corruption. And that's what we have to do. That's the biggest law. If I set a policy and you follow the policy, that means I have prayed my law, and my law is the biggest law. Because you are following my ideas, you're not following your own. That's my law. And also the first speaker came here giving us that they are reducing corruption. And the corruption, let me say, nepotism, we believe that nepotism is also corruption. How are you going to solve corruption? Yet when you are owning a company and your daughter is going to come out to ask you for a job, you are going to give her a job because she's your daughter, not because she's competent. That's the corruption you are just bringing up. You're solving a problem by causing a problem. We don't want that, dear judges. And also these guys really fail to differentiate the problems of the nation from the problems within a nation. If we all know they came here giving us school dropouts, and if they are bringing school dropouts, I can bet that in every state of Rwanda we have a public school. So we are not causing dropouts, because back in the days there was one school in a district. So if we are offering schools to all cells, I don't get the matter that we are causing dropout. Coming to the part of defense, let me give you the solvent. This is the solved issues that the government solved. The government solved the practicality of genocide ideology. It's alone. No private sector. It solved it better. Also, the government here is providing vaccination, which my second speaker talked about. But if these guys, because they want profit, if they're the one, they could sell a vaccine like on 100K, and yet we are offering it for free. That's what we call being a parent. The government is a parent. And also these guys, let me come back to they come to the issue of unemployment. And we are giving, if we are giving UBIs, if we are giving VUP payments, if we are also initiating to influence creativity and innovation, how are we causing unemployment? And also if we are just solving injustice by implementing the restorative justice or the community-based restorative justice, I don't get the sense that we guys are causing injustice. And also, we are not solving better the injustice. And also coming to the parts of the impacts, if you choose the negative, this means they are just the negative. We are advocating for changes that are going to affect all. We are advocating for the welfare for all citizens. We are also advocating for the general magnitude effectiveness. We are also going for justice. We are also improving transparency. We are also going for sustainable development. If we want sustainable development, all of us, dear judges, choose the negative. I'm proud to oppose. Cross-examine me.
You said like government is apparent, but the question is, those taxes and help from abroad, they are the one private sectors pay. And then the help from abroad can't be given to the private sector because the government is like in the charge of the whole country. Let me finish my question, please. Okay. So if the government is apparent, why do they have to punish those ones who don't pay taxes? Because we private sectors were in the charge to help, and if our help didn't there, we couldn't be murdered.
Short your question.
Shortly, how do you, explaining how well do you say that government is apparent? Well, it is even set like punishment for the people who don't pay taxes.
Okay, the issue here is, you guys, private sector, you're already making profit. So if you're making profit, why don't you want us to tax you? You want a lot of profit. What's that? And mind you guys, the business in Rwanda, a lot of the private sector here, they make profit repatriation. If we are fighting profit repatriation, then let all of us we have to tax you guys, because you're not going to make just to get a lot of profit, yet we are not getting also profit. What the law we are doing, we are getting, or we are taxing you to solve the problems we have. We are not here to solve you to eat the money. We are also here taxing you such that we are going to solve also other problems. If you don't want us to tax you, that means you don't want us to solve the problem. That's what shows that we better solve the problem than you do, you guys.
Okay, so then if you say that you have to tax us just to solve your problems and we don't do anything to solve our problems, that means that you use our money from the taxes to solve the problems, right?
And I say that clearly. Using a formula doesn't mean the formula solves the problem. You who is using that formula, you the solver. Because if my mother pays me school fees for a lent, I thank my mother that paid the school fees. I don't thank the bank that gave him a credit. My mother solved my problem of paying my school fees. So dear judges, after the cross-examination, I'm proud to oppose.
Thank you very much for a great debate. We're going to give the speakers 2 minutes to prepare their reply speeches, and each reply speech will be 2 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, in the reply speech today, these guys brought up something like giving us the importance is how these guys or the private sectors solve the issues, but basically they didn't show, they just showed us the importance, but they didn't compare their importance of our importance of the government solving the issue. They also brought something like news, but we don't know their credibility. How do we rely on? Because they brought something like police didn't do this, but they didn't show us how do they know what's deep in the police stuff. But we brought something like COVID vax as our main credibility, whereby it was effective than theirs. We brought something like harms, of which ours were better than them, because these guys brought harms that were even not explained, and they were also distracted by ours, and we gave them tasks of what if. These were thieves. We were asking them what could they do, or what can happen if we privatize their stuff. So these guys left a loophole of many questions that I can repeat right now. The first question was, problems of nations are better solved by private sectors in which terms? The first term was, is it inequality effectiveness? Is it equality effectiveness, or is it analysis of the issue? The second question was, how does the activity of private sectors influence the first division of the There was also the third questions whereby, what are the problems of nations and how are they differentiating? How are you guys differentiating them from the problems within the nation? The problems of the nation and the problems within the nation. The other question was that, prove how the governmental measures to solving national problems are of less value and visibility upon the private sectors. Plus, there was the question that goes like this: what do you suggest could happen if all governmental problems are solved by private sectors? The following question was, why do governments aim to have shares in all private sectors? So these guys left a gap of many questions and answered. That's why we take the debate with the opposition side. I rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you, opposition speaker, for your reply speech. I'd like to call upon the proposition reply speech.
I'm here as affirmative of the motion, where we saw that the nation are solved. I mean, the problems of the nation are solved by the private sector than government. So as my colleague from the opposition side, he said, like, we leave gaps of the problems, where I say, like, from the last question you asked, like, what could happen if all the government problems were left to the private sector? I would say, like, it wouldn't really be a hard problem, because as we said, private sectors, we really matter. And from the high taxes we pay, that's the government where bases, like, it get that 70, they don't pay from us. And another question you said, would you please repeat for me that question, which goes like the inequalities and what?
The question was like, how does the private sector solve inequality, since their aim is maximizing profits?
So the private sector solve those inequalities where even if our profit is our aim is minimizing the profit by giving the taxes to the government, so that the government can be like the one which really does those activities. But within the questions, you also say that government, you also leave gaps of the question. I said, like, government is a parent. That government is a parent to us, like, how? I really want you to prove to us, like, how? How, if the government was a parent, we wouldn't really put the punishment to us who doesn't pay the taxes, and rather that 30% they pay for us, we pay ourselves, and the 70% that is being paid by them is from the taxes and the help from the abroad countries. Thank you.
You've seen it all. These guys almost set this place on fire. The fire alarms here are definitely making the noise. Well, the judges will now take time to decide. It's a tough decision, so let's give them time as they decide who took the debate for today. Hello and welcome back again. The big moment is here, the moment of truth. We get to see which side took home the debate for today. The judges have done their job. It's quite a tough one, but hey, they have to come to a decision. Judge Enoch, how was the decision making?
It wasn't easy. Both sides presented an amazing case, so we had to go down to what the criteria and everything we're looking at. And as the motion stated, the problems of the nations are better solved by the private sector than the government. What the judges based on was which side showed that their side was better, while proving their advantages over the disadvantages of the other side, because the debate today is why one side is better than the other. So that is the criteria we used when we were debating, and we just weighed which side did their job better.
So, the judges believe that, given what they have seen, they have picked a side that took home the debate. And by the power invested in me by the judges just this moment, I will announce to you the side that took the debate. And that is none other than the opposition side, Rusumo Highschool. Well, there you have it. It was not an easy one, but the judges had to decide which team had to take home this debate? Well, there always has to be a fair play. So I will ask both the teams to come up, rise up, and sort of give a fair play to their opponents, the proposition side and the opposition side. A fist bump due to the corona measures, please. So rise up and give a fist bump to each other. Well, thank you very much for watching. That was it for today's episode. Be sure to tune in next time because we will be here as promised. My name is David. See you next time.